Hello friends! Recently you saw the online scandal between bloggers Alkhim and Mandziuk. I'll say right away, and I'll keep emphasizing this, I'm not a tabloid, not yellow press. I don't discuss show business. Right now, in these few minutes that this video will last, I'll prove to you that this conflict is actually about politics and commerce. And it has nothing to do with patriotism, let alone your well-being or the success of Ukraine. For those who don't watch the streams, any person with an audience today cannot be in Ukraine and express only their own opinion. They have to take a side or keep quiet. In this case, everyone has to accept the conditions approved by the propaganda. Many, or rather most of those who benefit financially from this simply voice the narratives that the authorities need. Mandziuk just invents situations. Supposedly, Alkhim refused to sing a Ukrainian song at a children's event even though it's in Ukrainian, but that's not true. Then it was published that she did sing, but they picked on her, started calling her a traitor and all sorts of things. I want you to know, and I'm making this video in a short format to get straight to the point so you can just understand, they're openly deceiving everyone for political gain. The old well-known strategy of divide and conquer is at work. They want to split us up, divide us by different characteristics and principles, so that no one has the time or desire to deal with those in power. Argue among yourselves, but leave us out of it. Once, Usyk was asked whose Crimea it is, and he said God's. Did that happen? Yes, it did, and then it happened again. Which president do you like? And here was Usyk's answer.
Which of the presidents do I like out of all the ones there are? Well, here you go. Lukashenko, I don't know why.
Oh, come on, now they're going to accuse you like, oh God, she chose a dictator.
What are they going to accuse me of? Telling the truth, being a dictator? Well, if he makes some, really strong decisions, he's a man with guts. Not just because he's some president, but because he's a man with huge guts. Damn steel guts, just really big ones like that. It's the way he makes decisions, like how he does things, and how he chose this person or that person.
That's why I won't ask how you feel about Putin. It's unnecessary.
Now he's a patriot, it's not hypocrisy, just normal. Then Sternenko picks up all this stench from Mandziuk and starts inciting people. All of them together have audiences in the millions. I emphasize again, audiences in the millions. People fall for this, and that's when the aggression starts. I'll say it again, I don't subscribe to or watch either, and I barely know what they're doing. Except for making money, which is normal. Well, exactly, I'm telling you, so while browsing somewhere, I've never heard any aggression or discrimination against anyone. So basically, she's just living her life while Mandziuk is stirring up hatred during wartime. Notice the key point, what Putin based his propaganda on during the Crimea and Donbass annexation 10 years ago. And now we're going to save the Russian language and Russian speakers. Was there ever a time Russian speakers in Ukraine needed saving? No, there wasn't. Today they are completely playing along with Putin's propaganda. Because it's the only way to hold on to power, it's the only way to govern the country at all. Since the government can't provide you with anything, it can only offer tyranny, aggression and pressure. They set us against each other because they can't govern the country any other way. And now let's move on now about the commercial aspect. Mandziuk, in my opinion, is simply getting rid of Alkhim as a competitor in blogging, because how do bloggers like that make a living? Advertisers come to you and ask you to promote this or that, and it will cost this much. And of course it's beneficial for Mandziuk to discredit Alkhim because they have the same employers, the same audience, the same direction, and the advertisers who advertise with Alkhim ideally will go to people like Mandziuk. That's all. I'll give you some examples of how this has played out in Ukraine on a political basis before. For example, Svetlana Loboda and Tina Karol. Did you notice how Loboda was pushed out of Ukraine and Karol's star rose? That's the first example. The second example is Jan Belenyuk, a member of Zelensky's faction, an Olympic wrestling champion. Novikov was once removed, later gained Bulgarian citizenship and became an Olympic champion with Bulgaria's national team. That's how it works in Ukraine. In normal civilized countries, everything is decided in an honest, open, competitive market. Competition decides. If you're better than someone, then you're higher. More successful than someone, maybe you earn more. Maybe you're more hardworking. Here, everything is determined by backroom deals. And meanness. Meanness as a national trait. It's very unpleasant for me, but I have to state this fact. Let's return to the political aspect. Imagine that everything goes according to the scenario written by this Mandziuk. People keep stirring things up. What happens next? Let's imagine that the war is over. First of all those who were targeted by aggression leave, and all those who understand that they will be victims of this aggression and repression do not return, while being on the territory of Ukraine, I emphasize, their own native country. Next, the creative class simply won't be able to create in such conditions. Most of them, not all of course, but most will also leave. And who will there be to speak Ukrainian with? If you're seeing me for the first time, I want to stress that I speak Ukrainian as well as Russian. Who am I supposed to talk to? There will be 20 to 22 million people left, including 8 million pensioners, a couple million children, 2 million government and military personnel. That's the entire country. No, and Mandziuk will be talking you know who with his employer, even though this employer has already switched to Ukrainian. 99% only did it during the war because it was trendy. If the trend reverses, they'll easily switch back to Russian. It's just business, nothing personal. You know, this is truly how it will be. And this incitement will only lead to the fact that no one will want to speak Ukrainian because it will be considered the language of aggression. Not because of me, not because of you, but because of certain forces of power and Mandziuk of power. This is only needed for one thing, to keep this power by playing games with fools. Since nearly everyone in the president's office and most special service agents speak Russian, and likely even the curators, I'd bet Mandziuk does too, probably 90% sure. Next point, let me say it again. This is a kind of mixed collection of the main points, the key theses that I constantly talk about on my streams. Ask Mandziuk if she's in favor of Ukraine being a member of the European Union. She will definitely say, of course, yes. Let's open the European Union documents, the fundamental principles on which it was organized and built. It was also created for the reason that Europe is diverse, to say that we are a single whole and to avoid discrimination and quarrels. It is written there in black and white. These documents were published. No discrimination on any grounds or principles, just like the United States Constitution. The First Amendment. Any freedom of religion, language, anything you want is allowed. It's the same in Europe. Moreover, there is the European Charter of Languages, which protects the Russian language. Furthermore, Russian is among the top 5 international languages in the Ukrainian language. Today, fewer than 35 million people speak it worldwide, and now it's down to 30 million. This number is about 30 to 35 million, while in Russian it's 250 to 300 million, which is more than 10 times the difference. So, if someone needs this, it doesn't mean that person loves Ukraine any less, or that someone who speaks Ukrainian loves Ukraine more. In reality, behind all of this there is either purely commercial interest, politics, or just rot, which sided with the strong at the moment when a certain class of society was left powerless. And in order to kind of pretend to be with the weak, on the side of truth, I'll go to the strong so it doesn't affect me. There are such devils as well. And now, in conclusion, after this conflict, sometime later, Mandziuk publishes the following post. I talk about this constantly and all the time because it offends me that only a handful of bloggers in Ukraine are trying to cover most of the needs of the military. Yes, it shouldn't be this way, but unfortunately, I want to say fuchang, but don't you want to ask this question to the government? Why do bloggers and ordinary people, citizens of Ukraine, have to fulfill the duties of the state at all? Hundreds or even thousands of bloggers are raising funds for the armed forces of Ukraine. Many individuals also help personally with their own money when possible. And I, for example, at the beginning of the war, only did it that way. I didn't collect anything anywhere. And to this day, I personally don't collect anything myself. I can only publish for those whom I know. But you see, that's not really right. It's just that we can't do it any other way because our people are fighting at the front. But in principle, that's not right. And in a way, we're encouraging a wrong kind of state by doing this. We're being exploited, but we get stronger. But she has no questions. And check out my stream review, this video that Ukrainska Pravda released. Look at how important special service officers in top positions are calmly drinking and socializing with criminals and businessmen in a restaurant, laughing and hugging each other. Look, she has no questions about this. She has no questions. Kidnappings in the army worth billions of dollars, when money was supposedly sent for weapons, but nothing came in return. And then, well, it just didn't work out, and then where they end up, nobody knows yet. Well, the FBI in America knows this. They have no questions there. Notice, they have no questions for any official, not a single tender, basically. They have no questions for any of those responsible for our failures. I'm not even talking about who gave up the territory, who cleared the mines, who gave or didn't give orders, who was telling stories about barbecues. She has no questions about any of that, believe me. For her, right now, Volodymyr Alexandrovich Zelensky, Yermak, and the entire president's office are the best of the best, and you are the bad ones, and Alkhim is bad. She needs to be pushed aside so that the advertising comes to me, so that only I make money. That's how it is. So brazen, cynical, and underhanded. Just like that. In a Ukrainian way, I would say unfortunately, although I wish our people were associated with something else. No, people, and you should see this as the main thing. Everything else is just a smokescreen. In reality, it's all banal, just personal interest. During the war, under the guise of great concern for Ukraine, we haven't seen many Ukrainian-speaking embezzlers in embroidered shirts with you, with a piece of salo on the table and with red borscht. And then bang bang, and millions appeared while the salary was $300. And should I remind you about Khmelnytsky or wherever those prosecutors were? How many were there in total? 54 people or however many there were. Dozens registered as disabled. Do you remember Krupa or whatever her last name was from Khmelnytsky region? She was lying on the bed, her husband or son was swimming in dollars. How much did they find? $4 million? Just an official, let's say, of middle rank. No, Mandziuk doesn't see it, that's normal. I don't expect anything from her anymore. I don't expect her to do what I do. No reform suggestions or criticism of authorities. If she doesn't want to, she doesn't have to. But the problem is with corrupt states, not with people. The state failed to fulfill its obligations in every respect. It didn't protect people in many frontline regions of Ukraine, nor did it supply the army properly. In the war's fourth year, everything still relies on donations. There's a booming business being made from this. Do you really believe that any of these big bloggers collect money and actually pass on 100% of it somewhere? I would tell you, I just don't want to. Things aren't that simple there yet. They've set themselves up really well. Draw your own conclusions, don't be foolish, and please make sure those who still don't get it understand this. All of this is not love or care. With Ukraine, it's important to address the root issue, ask real questions and suggest solutions. That's what matters. That's Ukraine's future and success, but people like Mandziuk will destroy it, and war will occur even with a truce. After some time, for the same reasons, it will happen again. Remember my words, God forbid, of course. God willing, we'll have a new president. A different path, a successful Ukraine. Thank you for watching the video until the end. Be sure to subscribe to this channel and leave a comment. What do you think about everything you've heard so far?